When I first thought of the word US history, I imagined the complicated and difficult topics that this would entail. For example, the specific names, dates, and events that we would need to learn and memorize seemed extremely complex. In addition, with very little historical knowledge, I did not know what to expect. However, I was very pleased to find out that this US history course would be completely different than any class I have taken before. First of all, US history is challenging. So far, this course has been adequately challenging. Since we are enrolled in this honors course, we understand that it will be more comprehensive than a regular class. With this in mind, we have had numerous tests and assignments that tested our knowledge on the subjects that we studied. Secondly, US history is entertaining and fun. For example, prior to unit tests, we usually attempt to open the breakout box. This group activity, consisting of deciphering codes and unlocking the box, provides us with an opportunity to review the information and become familiar with it once again. In addition, we play games that are fun while also reviewing the topics that we have learned. For instance, we have played many historical games that can be played with dice and have learned tons of historical context regarding these games. In addition, we learned how to play a game called Igba Ita, which is commonly played with cowrie shells in West African tribes. This form of pitch and toss depends on which side of the shell is facing upwards. This form of gambling was heavily influenced by enslaved people and acted as a massive part in the rehumanization of slaves. Recently, we have even learned how to play games with dominoes. The strategy behind these games allows us to think and learn strategies that can be important in life. Overall, these fun activities provide us with historical information, review, and even teach us how they were played in past times like slavery. U.S. history is remembered. For instance, students continue to learn and research historical events very often. In the early 1900s, women protested in many ways, hoping for the 19th Amendment to be passed. These women typically held signs protesting against Wilson, usually while standing outside of the White House. The signs were very similar to these, stating phrases like Wilson is against women and vote against Wilson, which were typically held by the protesters. In addition, during the 1950s, the civil rights movement was thriving. Tons of people began participating in something called sit ins, which were a form of protest which legally allowed them to interrupt businesses until the point where they felt the need to serve the protesters. Other instances consisted of people holding signs stating that they were men too. Clearly, equal rights for all was showcased through these forms of protest. The signs, which contained statements similar to these, flourished throughout the civil rights movement. U.S. history is revealing. For example, while researching, I came upon the discovery that Brophy was founded in 1928. I found this very interesting because with our studies in class, I remembered that the Great Depression began in 1929, just 1 year after Brophy was founded. This event in history continued to become one of the longest and worst economic downturns in history. Lastly, US history is full of rebellion. For instance, in class, we learned about many rebellions that massively impacted the outcome of the United States. First of all, Shays' Rebellion, led by farmer Daniel Shays in Massachusetts during the 1780s, stemmed mainly from high taxes. These rebels, also known as Shayists, protested demanding economic relief and government reform. The rebellion highlighted the weakness of the Articles of Confederation and influenced the drafting of the U.S. Constitution. Secondly, we learned about Bacon's Rebellion. This rebellion, occurring in 1676 in Virginia, was led by Nathaniel Bacon. This form of protest began against Governor William Berkeley's policies which favored wealthy planters. Rebels, including indentured servants and small farmers, protested Native American raids and lack of representation. Though suppressed, it revealed social tensions and led to stricter control over labor and race. Lastly, the Boston Tea Party may be considered a rebellion. This 1773 protest occurred in Massachusetts and began when the Tea Act was passed and taxation without representation was flourishing. Colonists then dumped tons of British tea into the Boston harbor, later resulting in the American Revolutionary War and independence from the British.